It honestly blows me away how little content you will see on the internet about preserving mental capital. But then at the same time, you think about it, and you're like, well, it kind of makes sense with the amount of people who are actually profitable, but doing it for a long enough period of time to understand this is even a concept in the first place, wrap their mind around it, think about it for a few minutes. And at the same time, it doesn't get the clicks. So I kind of get it. But I'm going to try to do a small part in changing that narrative. So the concept of preserving mental capital, I've come to find firsthand, is one of the most important things in trading. And it's A, not widely talked about, but B, very likely to blame for why someone ultimately is not able to make it and why they unravel and eventually spiral out of control, blow an account. Like, a person may go on a run, show that they're profitable to some degree, show that a strategy works, and then they may lose a trade, make that 2, 3, 4, 5, make it 7 or 8 out of 10, and now they're like, oh shit, my strategy doesn't work. And it's not necessarily that their strategy doesn't work, but now they start deeply bleeding out mental capital because of what happens in that mindset. And when you get to that point, that then when they come to the markets, it just unravels and then it blows up right in your face. And then it's like, yep, told you so, the strategy didn't work, and now I have no account. What we often find is that it's not as much the strategy as it is the person operating the strategy. And when that person runs out of mental capital or mental capacity to remain level-headed, to remain an observer of the market and take their shots, when they run out of that capacity, they are now vulnerable to massive risk. This is what I have personally found myself through many years of experiencing the different emotions and side effects of trading. And I've seen firsthand a lot of other people do the same thing. And it's a really big reason why you'll see a lot of people who maybe were at one point very good, or they were perceived to be very good, but now they either fell off the face of the earth, you've never heard of them again, or they're literally doing something else. It's because this mental capital problem is not easy to fix, and it requires a lot more than just looking at the charts and saying, oh, I should change this or this in my strategy. But if you're here, that's an awesome start. So let's get into how to preserve that mental capital. But first, a word from the sponsor of today's video, Iron Beam.
Welcome to Iron Beam, the future of futures trading. With our cutting-edge chart trading feature and 300+ indicators, you can now trade directly off the chart anytime, anywhere. Delivering seamless trading across all platforms, the Iron Beam journey is supported by 24-hour trader support, low day trade margins, and no account minimums. Iron Beam brings the future into the present. Join now and augment your trading experience.
First things first, we need to get our trading psychology right. We've got a playlist that covers a bunch of videos. We talk about this a lot. A lot of the videos that I enjoy making nowadays have a big psychology tie, and that's for a reason. I think it's so important, and it's literally what will make or break you at the end of the day. I have personally found when I started to get a handle on my psychology and dive deeper into psychology and not the strategy itself, what I found was that I went from consistently losing and then maybe breaking even to break even, consistently winning, to mostly consistently winning, having red months obviously here and there, but consistently winning since. And that by itself speaks enough to me to show me where my focus should be. Less on the chart itself and more up here. So again, I highly recommend that psychology playlist or this video on trading psychology. I will also link it up down below. Great place to start, or even check back to after this video if you're not familiar. Once we have our psychology dialed in and we're thinking like we should be, although there really is no perfect or right answer to that, we can take a step back, or we need to take a step back and think of our life like a play, or think of it like a bird's eye view, or think of it as like God or whatever, as like someone looking down on your life. So you become the observer versus the player. This is where you have to do a little bit more deep thinking. And it's not like hard necessarily. It's just different. We often, or really not often, we just aren't taught growing up and through society to do this very much. And there's, I believe, a lot of reasons for that, but that's for a different video or a different channel altogether. You might need to go for a long walk. I find that going for walks, being out in nature, being in motion, could even be driving, being in motion with the wind, feeling different things, smelling different things, it starts to stimulate, and I start to think and become an observer about what I'm doing in my life versus just getting stuck in the game and just going along day after day after day. I take a step back and go, okay, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Why am I making these same mistakes in the case of trading? How do I fix these mistakes? You'll find that if you think clearly enough and you give yourself the opportunity to think about this, the answers are literally there. It's not like you haven't found the answer yet. It's not like it's hidden. The answer is there. You just have to figure out and peel back the layers as to why you're not respecting your stop loss, why you're not respecting your trading hours as you should be, why you're not doing this or that per your strategy. Because that's what ultimately ends up being the problem. It's not that your strategy doesn't work. There's a million strategies that can work. It's the operator of the strategy, how they're operating the strategy, and why they do what they do every single day. What I've also found is that there's a lot of things flashing here and there and people on social media that distract you, whether intentionally or not. We fall into this like pit of comparison and despair when things start to go wrong and we're losing. And so all we start to see is everybody else winning. It just flows into our feeds like a raging river. When you are doing bad, everybody else is doing amazing. And you feel like fucking shit because of it. This by itself literally burns through mental capital. It's like you are taking the mental capital, the mental capacity in your brain to come to the markets, objectively view them, and operate your strategy. You are taking that and you are just throwing it into a fire when you do this. When you compare and you fall into that compare and despair category, it is the worst thing for your mental capital. And it's not surprising why the next day or week when you approach the market, you lose even more money. Trading is not a comparison game. It might hurt. But there may need to be a bunch of unfollows that have been checked on a lot of places that maybe got you into trading or maybe made you money in the past, but now you recognize they're not helping you. They're not preserving your mental capital. They're actually taking from your mental capital, and that's hurting you in the long run. Another massive component to preserving mental capital is the time you spend on the charts. I remember the days when I used to live in Austin, Texas. I lived downtown, literally on 6th Street, apartment overlooks 6th Street, on top of the bars and clubs. And when we would hit Friday and the bell would ring, 4 p.m. Eastern, or I guess 3 p.m. Central Time on Friday, and the market closed up, I would walk out onto my balcony, I would sit there, and I would take this massive sigh of relief. And it felt like I had just been through a mental war all week long. And I did that for about a year or two straight where I felt like that. Sometimes it'd be 40 plus hours looking at charts. And that's not counting the other work that I had to do or that I was doing not related to trading at all, where I was on my computer and doing shit. It was the most draining period of my trading ever. And it's funny because it completely modeled a law of diminishing returns chart, like perfectly. Initially, I was making money and it was good. And then eventually, we kind of started to stall out and we were struggling. We were like not making any money. We weren't losing any money, but we weren't making any money. And then eventually we started to lose. Not drastic. I never had massive blow-ups, anything like that. But I started to lose and lose and lose. And it was a consistent curve of a loser. That's literally what it was for months. The point is, you need to know when it's time and when it's not time. This is not a skill that you can learn overnight. It's a skill that you learn over time. And one of the best components or best ways to learn is to track your trading data. For example, TradeZella allows you to look at every even 15-minute increment throughout the day, and if you are red or green during any specified time period. This is awesome because it can tell you, okay, do not trade between these hours and these hours, you're not good. And during those hours, you don't trade. You preserve mental capital, your eyes are not looking at candlesticks, you can do something else. You can either do other things, other work, or go for a walk, enjoy your day, go to the gym, do whatever it is that you want to do that is not trading. Discount code to TradeZella below if you're interested in signing up. I've been using them for about 2 years and they've been awesome. When you're off the charts, embrace not thinking about trading. Embrace focusing on being present in the moment of what you're doing. This is a piece that's not easy, but when you have data to back you up, a strategy to follow, you have all the pieces. You know what you need to do when you come to the markets. It's now a matter of just doing them. And then when you leave the markets, acting as if I just went to work, I did my job, and if you did your job and you lost, that's okay, because that's part of trading. If you did your job and you made money, that's okay. That's part of trading. That performance does not make up who you are outside of the market. And when you can finally let that go and leave that to your trading hours and your journaling hours and be critical during those hours and be observant and be dialed in, you free up so much more mental capital and you can even recharge that during the rest of your day. I hope that was helpful when referring to mental capital and it makes more sense now. Sponsor and TradeZella link below this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.